You're live. Hello, gentlemen and ladies. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
You are live. Thank you.
All right, go, Liz.
All right. Good evening, friends, and welcome to Debate Night in Black America. My name is Liz Courquet-Lesaulnier, and I'm the Managing Director of Word in Black.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Williams, and I'm Deputy Managing Director of Word in Black. We're a national newsroom founded by 10 legendary Black publishers from across the nation, with reporting focused on confronting racial inequities and amplifying the solutions Black America needs to bring about equity and justice.
So you can always visit us on the web at wordinblack.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter to help you stay up to date on all of our reporting and find links to follow us across social media. Speaking of which, tonight, if you are following us on social media, on Twitter or Threads, you can use the hashtag WIBDebate24. So tonight we're actually doing what the Black press has done for nearly 200 years. We're creating a space where our community can come together to discuss the issues that matter most to us. But this time, through the magic of technology, this conversation will happen nationwide in real time, just ahead of a highly anticipated, highly consequential presidential debate.
Now, it's often been said that this is one of the most, or if not the most important election of our lifetimes, and there are clear differences between what the two candidates, Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, have to offer Black America. During tonight's presidential debate, we hope to hear what the candidates offer that speak to the experiences and concerns of the Black community, and to help us get ready for what we might hear tonight. We'll be in conversation with several experts from across the nation.
So we're going to talk about big picture issues important to all Americans in general, but to Black Americans specifically: the economy, immigration, race and civil rights, healthcare, and of course, education. We are eager to hear what folks have to say, what they think we should look for during the debate, and whether the vice president and the former president will follow suit with our predictions.
And while this is just the pre-game show, if you will, we will be watching the debate ourselves. And when it's over, we'll be back for more commentary and analysis of what we saw and how well each candidate spoke to our community.
So with that said, let's get things started. And to help us set the table right off the bat, we have two special guests: Holly Holliday, president of Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote, which is a nonprofit founded by Black women to elevate the political voice and leadership of Black women. And we have Barbara R. Arnwine, president and founder of Transformative Justice Coalition, which is a national racial justice organization. She's also the creator of the Election Protection Program and the 2011 Map of Shame of Voter Suppression. Welcome to both you all.
Thank you.
Well, it's good to see you. Okay, well, we'd like to kick off our discussion just to find out what you think you'll hear tonight and what you want to hear. So, Ms. Amrite, let's start with you. What do you expect you'll hear, and what do you think you'll hear from each one of these candidates? Barbara?
Yes, I would like to hear a really strong focus on economic justice. Mm-hmm. I want to hear a strong focus on voting rights and democracy protection. I want to hear a strong focus on African American women issues, including maternal health and life. I want to hear a strong focus on gun control. I want to hear those issues. We all know that the third person on that debate stage tonight is called Project 2025. I want to hear a lot about it. So those are, to me, some of the really important issues, including criminal justice reform. Mm-hmm. If we hear those matters, then we have a real debate. If we don't hear them, we got a long ways to go.
Mm-hmm. And how likely do you think you are going to hear from them? I mean, I know Vice President Kamala Harris, she's got a wide reputation as vice president. She was a former prosecutor. Do you think that much of this will come up tonight, what you want to hear, as opposed to what President Trump, who at the very least, he's been somewhat hostile to the Black community, but he's trying to reach out to more Black voters. What do you think you'll hear compared to the two of them?
Well, I hope that we don't hear about Black jobs again, right? Uh, Come on. I mean, I hope that there will be some serious policy discussion, although I don't expect it. I think the former president has shown over and over again that he's incapable of that kind of coherence and that kind of deep political thinking and honesty. What I do think we'll hear is a lot of, subterfuge, a lot of confusion. And what I hope is that the vice president will be able to stay on message, not be rattled by what I expect will be some bizarre attacks. And that I hope that she will be able to speak to people about her record and who she is. I mean, I'm always taken by that 9% of everybody in these polls who say they don't know her. They don't know who she is. They don't understand what her policy agenda is. I think this is her time to be heard, and she needs to do what Biden did in 2020. Remember, during the debate, several times he just ignored his opponent in 2020 and spoke directly to the American audience. She needs to do the same.
And Holiday, how about your take? What do you expect to hear? What would you like to hear? And what do you think you'll hear? Holly, can you hear us? I think we might have some technical issues with Holly. But going back to you, Barbara,
Yes.
Given all of that, and given where Vice President Harris is in the polls, you said there were a lot of people who believe that they don't really know who she is. Is this the right forum and the right format to reintroduce herself to the public? I mean, is this the right place? Is she going to be able to do it effectively? I mean, they had a whole convention and she purportedly introduced herself to America that way. What about now? Is this going to be the proper place and the proper time to get her message out to the American people and give them a feel for who she is?
Well, I think it's a really tough spot, right? I mean, she walks into this debate with 4 factors against her. One is the stereotypes. She's got to defeat the stereotype against women, stereotype against Black women, stereotypes against Asian women. She's got to defeat all 3 of those stereotypes. Then she has to deal with that double standard that everybody, if Trump comes and he breathes and he speaks, in coherent sentences, he's a success. He's presidential. If she speaks and she does well, but if she doesn't, quote, elevate herself, then people will criticize her. I think we know that there's a double standard. We've been watching it in the media this whole last number of weeks, and I think that she has to really distinguish her role as vice president and what she would do as president. They're not the same. And people get confused. They're saying, if this is what you wanted to do, why haven't you done it yet? And they don't understand she doesn't have that power and authority. And so she's got to speak to what her vision is. She's got to resonate. She's got a lot to do on the stage. And I think it's a heavy burden. But I also think that she has strengths that will serve her well. She's a trained, she's a trained litigator. She knows how to argue and present arguments well. She's just got to be human with it, kind, and we've seen that kind of personality out of her. She's got to, have show that warmth, that intelligence, and she's got to show that good comprehension of facts and policy. I think that if she does those things, she'll do well tonight. I also think that if he somehow backs off of the personal attacks, if he somehow can remember correctly, policy issues, then he'll do well. So we shall see.
Barbara, one question I have is, what are you hearing from people that you work with and collaborate with? What are they excited about and what are they worried about?
They're so excited about the campaign, how well she's campaigned. That's what everybody seems to be just shocked by, is how incredibly brilliant the campaign has been to date, including the DNC. I think people are really excited about the youth vote and about how many young people have been registering to vote. That's the thing I hear about the most. And especially how many young African-American women have been registering to vote, and those incredible numbers, a 700% increase in young voters registering to vote, 100 and what is it, 69% increase for Black young women. I mean, it's really quite astounding. We've never seen stats like this in our life, not even during the Obama years. So it's it's very fascinating. So people are fascinated by that, but they worry about it. They worry for her a lot. And that's something we always run into, that whole sense of vulnerability. People want to protect her. People are, very deeply worried about, her about, making sure that she does well. And she's bearing what? She's carrying all the weight of the world on her shoulders for Black women. I mean, she's having to represent so hard for the Black community. People are enraged about the lies they're hearing about her, the illogical. They're upset about the misogyny. They're upset about the misogynoir, as we call it, about, all of these issues. They're very upset about the sexism, especially that it's rearing its head sometimes so ugly in the Black community.
Well, that's a lot to take in. It's a very heavy burden. We're going to be really excited and eager to see how this goes. Liz, anything else?
No, we appreciate you, coming to join us and coming to talk to us. We hope you'll come back again and spend some time with us talking about all the issues that we are facing, and enjoy the debate tonight. And, we're going to be really curious to hear what you think after the fact and what happened. And I think that we will all be having a lot to chat about. That's for sure.
Well, Liz, if I may say one thing, Liz and Joseph, I think that, one thing that we will be looking for, forward to over the weeks to come is making sure that voters are protected. That's the other thing I've heard. It's a lot of concern about voters being sabotaged at the polls, being blocked from using absentee balloting, moving polling places at the last minute, all those deceptive practices. People are worried about that. So voter protection.
Yes.
It's a big issue, and I was glad to see Kristen Clark today speaking about that so prominently for the Department of Justice. So yes, I can't wait. I'm going to be tweeting to the hashtag tonight, so I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you. So
that was Barbara Armwine, president and founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Did we lose Holly Holiday, I wonder? Or she...
I think we did, but hopefully we can get her back a little bit later. We'll see. So our next guest is Dr. Shirley Weber, who is California's Secretary of State, and she has absolutely dedicated her career to defending and strengthening our most fundamental civil rights, including the right to vote, and has really led the fight for reparations here in California. I'm in Los Angeles, and let me tell you, Dr. Weber, I used that reparations calculator to figure out how much I would be owed. But what are you thinking about? What are you looking forward to for tonight's debate?
Well, I'm hoping that that we can see, hopefully, the difference between the candidates and see who would actually lead the country in the best way we think possible. It would be nice to get beyond the name calling and all the other kinds of things that just really take up people's time and frustrates them much more than talking about what are you really going to offer people in California and around the nation. What kind of leader would you be? What could we expect to happen if you become the president, either one of you? What can we look forward to? And what track record have you set that says this is what I have offered in the past and this is what I will offer? I often tell folks, don't listen to what people tell you they're going to do for you. Find out what they have done with whatever meager means or resources that they have. What have they done? Everyone who runs for president, who rises to that level, has spent some time doing something. They don't just pop out of a box. I shouldn't say that because somebody might give me an illustration and a demonstration of it. But they have done something, whether they've owned businesses, whether they've managed corporations, whether they've served in the legislature, they have done something. And the question is, what have you done with that time? Whatever it might be, have you really spent your time working on behalf of the constituents that you have there, on behalf of California, on behalf of the nation? What have you done? that gives us confidence that when you get more responsibility, you will do greater things. And I'm hoping we ask people those critical questions and either just listen to what they're saying and say, now, what is their track record? What have they really done? Not what they think they're going to do as a pie in the sky, but what have they done that will make me feel very good that they're going to represent me and that they're going to be inclusive of African Americans and others in this nation. What have you done? And I think most of them have lived long enough that they should be able to say something.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big issues, of course, that is going to be talked about is the economy. And of course, California, is what, fourth or fifth largest economy in the entire world. What are you thinking about the economic policies that you're hearing both of the candidates talk about, and what the impact could be specifically on the Black community here in California and nationwide?
Well, I think, we can bemoan the economy. And I think those who are old enough know that we've had worse economies.
Yes.
As African Americans, it is rare that we are not double-digit unemployment. Every year that I taught at the university for 40 years, we were 15, 16, 17% unemployment. For us to be single digit is a shock to me. And I know this new generation thinks very differently, and I'm glad that we are single digit. But the bottom line is we have had worse economies, and we have to put it in context of everything else that we're fighting for. And it's amazing when people around the world see this economy and think that, given the fact that we're out of work for 3 years almost, and we're still standing. I was in Ghana and I was talking with my friend, and we were talking about COVID this past November. And I said, and he said, oh, it was so hard. It was so difficult. He was telling me this. And I said, well, how long were you shut down? And he said, 21 days. I said, we had 21 months, if not more. And he was shocked. He said, and you folks are still standing? I said, yes. Yes. And so sometimes we get caught up in a lot of different things, and we lose sight of it. Yes, we have some inflation. We have some host of other things, but most folks are still standing after COVID. And we're still in the process of rebuilding. The economy has not crashed as everybody claims it was going to be. And so I just think that sometimes we need to stop and really assess all of the things that are happening in our lives. Yes, food is probably higher than we want it to be, but so is income. And that shocks people, because I'm one of those $1.50 an hour kids, you know what I'm saying? And somebody's talking about $19. I'm shocked. So there are a lot of things I think we have to look at, and the economy is one, but it's one of many things that make America.
Well, I kind of wonder, Dr. Weber, what do you think Vice President Harris or former President Trump needs to say to reassure people? I mean, because you're absolutely right. The economy, by any measure, is pretty strong and is pretty solid, especially compared to Europe. But you do have this vibe session that people are talking about, that they don't feel good about the economy. Now, given that Vice President Harris is a member of the administration, and that former President Donald Trump is saying that he wants to get back in the White House because the economy was so good when he was there, what do you think she needs to say, or he needs to say specifically, about the economy and why people should feel better than they do?
Well, I think there should be really a comparison of the economy itself between the past president and the vice president, in terms of where they started and where they end up. You come into a situation that Obama had been president, and you had a pretty decent economy. You had things on the rise. You had growth. You had a host of things occurring. You had rebuilding of the economy with regards to green ideas and green programs and all those things. That you had the economy, you had the car industry that almost went belly up, and it was restored. So you had a economy that was growing and building. When one comes in, you have an economy that is flipped and flopped because of COVID as a result of the other. So you have to, we have to be mature enough to understand that it's not always going to be great, and that we have to understand where we've been and where we're going. And it bothers me that folks don't somehow know that we have, I don't know if COVID gave us all selective amnesia of what, but to understand exactly where we've been and where we're going. And you walk into a situation where things are growing and prosperous, you're going to be a whole lot faster in terms of adjusting to things, and should be further than you say you were with regards to that. Where you come into a situation where we haven't been working for years, we have all folks with all kinds of issues in terms of their houses and their mortgages, and the businesses are trying to restore all of those businesses. When I came into office, it was right in the height of COVID when I became Secretary of State. And we had so many churches that were almost failing because of the fact that they didn't have anyone to do their books. They couldn't file their papers for their nonprofit status. I mean, we could have just let them, fail, but we went in immediately and started talking about workshops, and elders and deacons were calling us to get help because all this had really just turned them upside down. And so we have to look at where we are and where we need to go. And so it is a difficult time. And I think reminding people, sometimes we just don't want to remind folks of where we've been and look at where we are. And even with all the data that comes out, people are still stuck in that environment. And I think, just addressing it honestly, you can't sugarcoat it. It's difficult. Stuff is high, gas is high, all those things. But most of us probably remember when gas was higher than it is. And in the last couple of years, so it's a matter of trying to be honest about it, I think, and being very direct about what we've had to happen and where we are.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Weber. We could stay and talk to you all night, but we really appreciate you taking time out to join us, and thank you very much for your insight.
Well, thank you. And I was listening to your prior speaker, and we are fighting those battles with regards to the elections. And we want people in California to know that we are fighting, that we are ensuring that the elections are safe and secure. We have written legislation to make sure that anyone who attempts to basically intimidate folks at the polls or intimidate our poll workers, they will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We are fighting lawsuits across the nation. Our AG, even though we've had some in California, but we are joining on the various lawsuits where people are trying to stop folks from voting by mail, where they're trying to change certain kinds of things, and they're dealing with the polling places. So California is fighting it. Not only in California are we ensuring that it's going to be a safe and secure and transparent election, but we're working with our states across the nation, and we're fighting every lawsuit that's there to help those in other states stand firm in the area of elections and election integrity. So I thank you for this opportunity to be with you. We look forward to November's election, and we look forward to a safe and secure election where every person feels comfortable in going to the polls to vote.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. And we have another Californian up next. State Senator Stephen Bradford is chair of the Senate Public Safety Committee, as well as the chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus and a member of the Reparations Task Force. So he's worked very closely with Dr. Weber. He represents California District 35, which includes Los Angeles County, in the communities Compton, Gardena, Hawthorne, Inglewood, Lawndale, Lenox, Watts, Willowbrook. I taught in Willowbrook, so I have a soft spot for Willowbrook, Wilmington, and the entire port of Los Angeles, which, traffic, pollution, all of that sort of stuff. So we are especially thrilled to have him here, given his significant experience and his experience with neighborhoods and communities that are historically Black in the city of Los Angeles. Stephen, very nice to have you here. So first question for you is, you are just coming off of lots of excitement in Sacramento with the reparations bills that have happened. What is your, Joe and I had talked a lot about just the fact that would there be even a national reparations movement on the agenda? Would a potential, depending on the candidate, national reparations movement happen? What do you think would take to get that to happen? And do you see that as being key to closing the racial wealth gap in this country?
Well, thank you for this invitation to be here tonight. Let me just correct one thing. I'm the vice chair of the Legislative Black Caucus. I'm the immediate past chair, and I chair utilities and commerce, former chair of public safety as well. But as you asked the question regarding closing the wealth gap, I think that would be a great start in helping level the playing field, so to speak. We've done a lot of work. I think if we would have been able to get the two key measures that were held in the legislature, California legislature last week, I think it would have been great indication to the rest of the nation of what could be done and what should be done with reparations. The nation was watching, and unfortunately, we weren't able to get it done. So I hope it doesn't stop the movement on a national level. I think it's a discussion that needs to happen. It's 163 years overdue. As I constantly tell folks, this is not charity. This is not a handout. It is what is owed to those descendants of chattel slavery who built this nation. So I'm hoping it can be elevated to a national discussion. But again, I think if California would have got it done, everybody would have been talking about it.
Well, given all that, I guess two-part question. The first is, what do you expect you'll hear from the debate tonight? And do you think that reparations should be on the agenda no matter who takes office, either Vice President Harris or former President Trump? And do you expect it actually will happen at that level?
Well, what I hope to hear tonight is from candidate Harris, Vice President Harris, I should say, about her policies of real work to get done, as she said, fighting to restore Roe versus Wade, improving education situations here in America, debt relief, student debt relief. I know she's a strong champion of that. I mean, you have folks now graduating from college that owe more than what house notes were when I left college, 40 years ago. So I'm hoping to hear her plan for that as well. But one that is talked about, but we still haven't addressed, is the prescription drug situation. The cost of medicine here in this country is astronomical when you compare it to countries like Canada, just right across the border, where medicine is almost, 50, 60% cheaper there than what you can do here, even in Mexico. So I hope she's going to be talking about that. As for reparations, I don't know if it should be on the platform for this presidential election, but I know whoever takes that White House should be a champion for this and should not let it be swept under the rug again. It's an issue that needs to be addressed. As I stated, it's long overdue. So I hope whoever wins, and I'm hoping that person would be Vice President Harris, that she would take the mantle and move it forward on a national level.
Now, wondering also, you served a long time in the state house. So I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you had some interaction with Vice President Harris back when she was working as either AG in California or Attorney General or in San Francisco. Give us some insight on what kind of performance you think she will deliver tonight. And do you believe that she can competently and without getting too much distraction take on former President Trump, who's really known as a wild card here?
I've known Vice President Harris for 21 years when she first ran for DA in San Francisco, and I've worked with her as AG here in California and as our U.S. Senator. I have no doubt she's capable of taking on that former president and holding her own, with the best of them. So she's prepared, she's skilled, she's a great orator, and she's going to be coming with facts, not name calling, not being a petulant little child that we see from the other side. She's going to be very assertive and direct and intentional on what it is that she plans to bring to the table as the next president of the United States. So I'm confident in her abilities. I've seen it up close and personal again when she was AG and she did the homeowners Bill of Rights. That was a tough fight to get through the legislature I think that was about 10 years ago, and she was there arm in arm with the legislature to make sure she protected homeowners when they were losing their homes at an astronomical rate during the home crisis. So I'm excited about it, and I know she's going to hold her own tonight and be prepared to take them on toe-to-toe.
One question that I have for you is, given your experience and representing folks who live along the 110 freeway here in Los Angeles, the port, all of these areas. I think about the train tracks that run along, when you go past Nickerson Gardens and Watts and all of these places, and the environmental impacts, the health impacts of folks who live in those communities. And Joe and I were talking a little bit earlier about, we haven't seen specific policies presented by either candidate as far as, environmental, addressing any sort of environmental concerns. And those are obviously huge concerns in those areas. And then it, of course, trickles over to the health concerns with the rates of asthma among our kids down there and all of that. What are you hoping that they'll share around that, or what do you think that they will potentially share around those issues tonight?
I wish I could be a little bit more specific on that. I don't know, but I mean, it's an issue of great concern to all of us. But I'm also a strong advocate that we should not be just worrying about saving trees, but saving the people who are sleeping under trees and getting folks housed. That's the number one issue, I think, because if folks are not housed, they're exposed to all of those elements out there in the street, the pollution and all those things. And people say childhood asthma. The reason you have a high rate of childhood asthma is many times in poorly insulated homes, not necessarily your proximity to the freeway, but those homes that are poorly insulated. So making sure they're properly insulated and like I say, building housing to get people off the street. I think that's my number one climate challenge, and I would hope that that would be at the top of her list as well, to get people housed. But the environment is definitely important. We've led the way again in California. She's been part of that as a California elected official, and I have no doubt that she's going to carry the mantle forward on a national level also to make sure that our cars are cleaner. We're doing it cleaner in California. Our fuels are cleaner. So we just need to take a whole national approach on that as well. So it's happening. And I have no doubt she'll be moving forward that agenda as well.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. We'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much. State Senator Stephen Bradford represents the Los Angeles area in the State House of California. We appreciate it. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you later.
So up next, we have two very special guests. One is Carmen Best, who is the former police chief of Seattle, and Frederick Ingram, who is the Secretary Treasurer of the American Federation of Teachers, the 1.8 million members Federation of American Federation of Teachers. And I know that he is the highest ranking Black union leader in the country. So we are so very, very pleased to have you both here. First question, Carmen, what are you hoping that you're going to hear tonight from the candidates?
Well, first, let me say I'm just glad to be here this evening and talking to you all on what I feel is like a very exciting and historical moment in history that we're this evening. I would say that because of my background, being a former police chief and my interest in public safety, I really want to hear about public safety aspects, about what they plan to bring forward that way, particularly in light of some of the racial disparity that we're seeing. And not only with police, but also, public safety encompasses more than just law enforcement. It's people living unsheltered, it's crime, it's drug use, it's all those things that contribute to us being safe or not safe in the areas that we live. So I'm very interested in seeing what might be brought up along those lines as well.
Mm-hmm. And Frederick Ingram, how about you? What are you expecting to hear? What do you think you'll hear? And what would you like to hear?
Oh, wow. Well, thank you very much, first of all, for having me. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. Listen, I'm super excited. I'm super excited because there is some level of hope. There is some level of opportunity. When I see personally, let me start by saying personally, when I see a Black woman who is achieving something at the highest levels of government, of the levels of power of her profession, it excites me because it reminds me of my grandmother who never had those opportunities. It reminds me of my daughter who is in college for her first year and reminding her that she can achieve anything that she wants to. And so in that vein, we represent teachers all over America who give their lifeblood and soul, 77% women, to our young people, trying to make our communities better, trying to make our families better. So I'm really hoping that we hear some level of public education. There is a crisis in our public schools, a crisis that has been manufactured by someone else with culture wars, talking about book bans, talking about erasing history and really not giving students of color an opportunity to be the best of themselves. So I'm really hoping that we can dispel some of the rumors and that we can push forward with some more opportunity. I expect Kamala Harris to be a truth teller. She's a prosecutor. She is a skilled politician and a great orator, and she is as smart as they come. I expect Donald Trump to do what he's always done, tell us the truth about him. and tell us lies about everything else. And so it's just that simple for me.
Well, given that,
No, go ahead, Joe.
okay, I was going to ask questions of both of you. First to you, Carmen. We've heard a lot from Donald Trump about crime, that it's really sky high according to him. And crime is an issue in the campaign. Polls show that people regularly are concerned about crime, perhaps in part because the Republicans have been making it such an issue with even though a lot of what they're saying is not necessarily true. How do you tackle that? How would you advise her to tackle that if you were talking to Vice President Harris and advising her? And what do you think Donald Trump will do as far as crime is concerned, given the fact that he's got such a dim view of cities?
Yeah, well, we all have seen all the rhetoric coming from former President Trump on crime and how to tackle crime. Here's where we're lucky, and here's where it's fortunate, is that our vice president has been a prosecutor, has been an attorney general, is aware well of the crime issues across the country. She has been heavily involved as a part of her career and her past in prosecuting criminals and being heavily involved in the criminal justice system and looking for fairness and equity, but prosecuting those who do wrong as well. So she's not going to be a rookie, so to speak, at coming in and talking about these very important issues of crime. You know, it depends on the day of the week or what day that you're hearing from former President Trump about what his tact might be in terms of crime. But we've all seen him actually condone people who were insurrectionists on January 6th and coming into and committing multiple crimes. So it all depends on what day of the week. He'll probably go back to what we've always seen, which is name calling, incomplete sentences, and incoherent thoughts about this issue. And I fully expect that our Vice President, Kamala Harris, will do an exceptional job in talking about this very important issue.
Yeah, and Frederick, there's been a lot of conversation on the Trump side about eliminating the Department of Education wholesale, just chopping it and letting it go foul and returning ed policy to the states. Tell me what that would mean for Black America if that actually happened. And do you think he's got the leverage to make it happen if he becomes president?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking that question, because Trump and the authors of Project 2025 are saying the quiet parts out loud. They're trying to tell us that we no longer need pre-K because that's what eliminating the Department of Education will do. They want to eliminate Title programs, Title I programs, which was an equity program trying to get more money in our Black communities and challenged communities. They want to eliminate Title IX programs, which makes men and women on an equal par in athletic fields. And so these kinds of things, if they want to eradicate public education as we know it, they've already laid out the plan. They've told us exactly what they're going to do. So the choice is clear. I'm reminded of a hip hop song a long time ago that said, you can get with this or you can get with that. And these folks are telling us, blanket, full stop. We're going to do this. We're going to eradicate all systems of regulation around education. And then you have the haves and have-nots. And then you have people who will be educated and people who won't. And if you have money, those who have the goal will make the rules. And so that's where we are with this whole Trump and eradicating the public schools and education. They're already trying to put vouchers all over the place. They're trying to put in charter schools all over the place as though our kids are for sale. They are not. These are our students. These are our future. And just to go back on your point of criminal justice, if you really want to deal with criminal justice, help our students. Help our students when they're small and pre-K and first grade. Let's get a 10-year, 20-year plan so that we can eradicate the need to have these high-level crimes. Because what society is telling these young people is that we're not going to give it to you, so you have to go out and take it. And so we're challenging these kids to do negative things, and we should be challenging them in positive environments and opening our schools and giving teachers an opportunity to teach.
Liz?
Well, just one other question that I had, just, thinking in terms of, there's a lot of education funding that is obviously related to housing, real estate. There have been a lot of local promises about equality in funding. What do you think they can actually accomplish at the federal level, given that education is a states' right issue?
Is that directed at me?
Yes, please.
So I think there's a lot, because again, we go back to the Commissioner of Education. You go back to the rules and regulations. You give guidance from the Secretary of Education, and those guidance rules state that, you know, we will issue you public funds. So in order for you as a school system, whether you're a local school system or a state school system, you still get federal dollars into your title programs, Title I, Title IIs, Title IVs, Title Vs. This is everything from school lunch to infrastructure, to dealing with class size, to trying to regulate, you know, needed money for our ESD students, for our most challenged students. All of that is federal money. And so you can tie that money to making sure that these schools follow certain rules. And so what we need to do is make sure that we have people in office who really care about the value systems of Black and brown kids, who understand and are empathetic to the challenges that we have, and know that we not only want equality, but we want equity, that all of our kids don't start at the same starting line. We need to make sure that those communities that don't have get enough in their communities so that they can replicate the really good schools, because there are good schools and there are great teachers and students are doing good. Just look at our HBCUs, and the numbers are up 20% and 30% around the country, because these young people are finding themselves in these schools because they can see teachers and they can look at books and they can have conversations about themselves so that they know where they can go.
And if I can add, there is intersectionality between education, early childhood education, and the ability to be successful and to not be engaged in the criminal justice system. So I would agree with you, Dr. Bingham. If we could get our children that early childhood education that they need so much, preschool and preschool if we can, it will make a great difference in the outcomes of our children's lives in the future. So that is a great part of public safety as well.
Last question for you, Carmen. I'm curious what, you know, people have been like, she's nothing but a cop. She's locked up Black men, and that's all that she's really interested in doing. What has been your response to that?
Well, there's no verification or validation for that. You know, what the sad thing is, what we as Black people don't want is people to stereotype us as they do when they see us walking in because of the color of our skin. And what, you know, public officials don't want, or people in the criminal justice, system working there don't want us people to judge them because of the work that they're doing. Many of them, like our vice president and so many others, including myself, care deeply about the community, want to protect all of the community, you know, everyone. And a part of that sometimes is incarceration. Now, do I think that the over 37% of African Americans that are incarcerated in jail is the right number? Absolutely not. But I do think that there's a place for that as a part of a whole other history, a whole other set of things that we can bring into place for criminal justice. So that is not the record. That is just people throwing shade, quite frankly. It lacks truth.
Well, we'll leave it there for right now. Thank you so much, both of you. Carmen Best, the retired Chief of Police in Seattle, Washington, and Frederick Ingham, the new president of the American Federation of Teachers. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So next up, we have two more guests, Chrissy M. Thornton, who's the president and CEO of Associated Black Charities, and Yolanda Caraway of the Caraway Group, who has been long involved with all sorts of voting rights, political activism, getting Black women involved. We are so thrilled to have you both here. Yolanda, we'll start with you. What are you hoping that you're going to hear tonight from the candidates?
I am expecting to hear from Mr. Trump, his usual rhetoric and name calling, behaving like a frat boy, which he does most of the time, and not hearing anything about any policies, which has been the norm for him. And I am expecting the vice president to be the vice president and to talk about issues that we care about, and to talk about her platform and what she wants to do for the country. And I think there'll be some very funny barbs in between.
There'll be some diss action going on. Eh?
Oh yeah.
Well, Barbara Thornton, same question to you, or Christine Thornton, I beg your pardon. Same question to you. What do you expect to hear? What do you think you'll hear?
I really don't have very many expectations. I can tell you more what I want to hear and what I'm looking to hear, which is our current vice president to speak very confidently on, I think, issues that affect most people, and specifically because of the work that my organization does, to speak on the things that are going to affect Black communities. We're very interested in economic empowerment, social and political well-being of Black people, and I'm hopeful that tonight we'll hear things about economic justice, that we'll hear things about police reform, mass incarceration, maybe even community redress and wealth allocation and reparations. I mean, those are the things I would love to hear. What I think we might hear is a little bit of the continued unhinged behavior that we've become accustomed to with our former president. I don't look forward to that at all. And I'm hopeful that people can see through all of that and really needle down to the things that we need to focus on in the debate.
To that end, Christy, what are you hoping, or what do you think that it would take for Black voters? What do they need to hear and see to really understand the vice president's economic plans? Because you have, a lot of folks who are just like, listen, Trump gave me a check.
A stimulus.
Right, a stimulus check. And his name was on it.
I think that's our community's biggest issue. It's like really fighting against the misinformation, right? There's been this big narrative that is aimed at dividing us as Black voters, that targets Vice President Kamala Harris, where, we have to actively as a community push back against the notion that she is an enemy to Black progress. She's never shown up that way. Her record of involvement in our and really strategy around pushing our community forward has not shown up that way. I'm not sure what it will take for Black voters that don't want to see and understand that, other than really us rallying around what it means to not vote against our interests. That's something that as a community, it's been a deliberate attempt to convince us to vote against our interests, whether it's through the disinformation or campaigns that are really cloaked in rhetoric. And, we have to stay vigilant and informed. Sometimes, though, I wonder if our community has the privilege to be as informed as we expect them to be. Like, we're trying to get our children home safe. Do we really have the privilege to understand records and what's happened outside of receiving a stimulus check? And, I worry about that, but I think our charge is to make sure that we are communicating the fact that we have to stay focused on what really matters for Black people.
And I think she's been doing a good job. I think the campaign's been doing a very good job about showing who she really is. I think she gets a very bad rap on this whole prosecutor thing. She prosecuted Black people, she prosecuted white people, she prosecuted Hispanic people. They were drug dealers, they were murderers, they were rapists, and she was protecting the mothers and the wives and the children of the victims. She protected the victims, and she should be commended for that.
Well, I want to put this question to both of you, Ms. Thornton, you go first. I mean, basically the question is, you do have a segment of people out there, specifically Black men. We've heard a lot of conversation about how they are down with Trump, in part because of the stimulus check, but also because they're really kind of seeing not themselves in the Harris campaign. Do you believe, A, that is true? And B, if you think it is true, what should she do? What can she say to kind of reverse that narrative?
I don't even know if that should be the charge, to try to actively reverse that narrative. You have to know her by her works. And I think because Black women and all women really have rallied around the campaign, it takes, a little bit of maybe the comfort level away from men in general, and then Black men too. I think what's on the ballot for us are all kinds of protections and rights, and specifically rights and protections for Black women. And I would think that Black men, would understand that it's time to stand up in solidarity with that. I don't think that she needs to change her messaging. I think Black men need to kind of join and get on board with what's happening in the country so that we can, protect all of our freedoms that are really on the ballot this time.
But how do you make that happen, though? If Black men need to get on board and they aren't on board, how do you make that happen?
I think we just have to keep talking, and we have to keep talking about what's at stake with this election. There's a lot at stake that people aren't talking about. And we're talking about, lack of progress on police reform. We're talking about lack of economic, equity and access to funding and opportunities for Black businesses. These things affect everybody, man, woman, Black, white. I think we have to just start talking more about the issues and let go of the rhetoric. Yes, we're with her, and yes, we can, and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, if we really needle down to what's at stake and what's crucial for all of us as people, I think people will have to start to see, what we stand to lose, which is more important than people feeling challenged at this moment.
And I think we have got to get Black men to talk to other Black men. There are plenty of Black men supporting Kamala. It's the number of Black men supporting Trump is very small. I don't, for the life of me, understand why. Just if you're going to sell your soul for a stimulus check, that's kind of crazy to me. But seriously, but this is what, and I started this PAC. It's called Rise United, and it's kind of a Lincoln project that's targeted towards Blacks and Hispanics under 45. And we're doing we had a great call last night with about 100 content creators. We hired, if you all watched the Democratic Convention and saw the influencer group, we just hired the people who did that to do that for us. And we brought in content creators. They're working on this tonight, getting out stuff, and we want them to have a voice. And we plan to continue doing this after the election. But they're talking to each other. You got to get people to talk to people who understand and who actually believe. There's so much misinformation out there. It's just crazy. We've got to cut through all that BS.
Well, we appreciate those insights, and thank you both very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right, so we are just a few minutes before the beginning of the debate. Up next, we have Carl Mack, who's the former chair of the Seattle-King County NAACP, and Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, who is the founder and CEO of Revitalization Strategies, and he's worked on over 1,000 domestic and international communities to secure environmental, health, and economic justice rights. Welcome to both of you. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you, fam.
Thank you.
So first question that we have for you, we're just a few minutes away from this debate. What do you think is the most important message that the candidates need to get across to Black America tonight?
Doc, go ahead.
Well, I think the most important message to get to folks is to make sure that they understand that they're being seen and that they're being heard, and that their particular sets of needs are going to be met. And this is a very transformational moment, because there is an administration, the Biden-Harris administration, that actually has a track record in helping to make significant investments in housing, significant investments in job creation, and the opportunity to own our own businesses. I heard in the last segment you were talking about what are some of the things that Black men are interested in. They want to be able to take care of their families economically. They want to be able to start their own businesses and not necessarily have to work for someone else. So I think that if the vice president is able to share that no matter where you come from, whether it's in Appalachia or the Rust Belt, that, we're going to make sure the dollars are there to help you to be able to not just survive, but to thrive.
Dr. Mack, same question to you.
Well, let me, I also, I'm certainly impacted by this conversation around Black men. And as the good doctor said, when you think about what's at stake for Black men, I need people to remember something that Brother Malcolm X said to us. He said that the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most neglected person in America is the Black woman. And so I want to say this to my brothers. I want you to put the same criteria on Sister Harris as you put on Brother Trump. And when I say Brother Trump, I use that very loosely. So I want to say this. You look at her record. Now, I want you to imagine that if she had a record of denying the election results, if she had a record of inciting the January 6th insurrection, if she had the record of handling the pandemic like a soup sandwich, if she were videotaped or audio taped saying that she loves to kiss men and grab them by the penis. You try to envision to me that this would be a close election. And you could take any one of those things, and I would just ask my brothers to go back to 1988 when we were front and center in the presidential election between Bush and Dukakis. And if you remember, Dukakis was the governor from Massachusetts. Front and center was a black man. 2 words determined that election. They didn't care about policy. They didn't care about economics, immigration, foreign policy. They didn't care about any of those things. That election came down to 2 words, a black man named Willie Horton. Those 2 words are what did it. And so, again, when you listen to black men, we have this idea that Trump somehow is the one that gave us this stimulus package. Well, just simply go back and do your research. And as brothers, I want us to never, ever, ever in your natural life forget that Trump took out a full-page ad calling for the execution of 5 that look just like us. And now, when you talk about what the Republican Party is doing for us, well, you go back to Reagan. Even if you went back to Reagan days, what do we remember that happened in Reagan administration? They damn near bankrupted Social Security. That's what they did. Unemployment for black folks at an incredible high. So now you come all the way down. The Republican Party has done 0 for us. But what is it that Trump is specifically talking about doing for a specific group of white men? Because I don't remember or recall seeing so many black brothers and sisters out there on the J6 insurrection. But what I do know that Trump is talking about doing for that specific group of white folks, he's going to hold a fundraiser for them. And he has said from his own mouth that on day 1, I am going to grant pardons to them. So I'm asking you as brothers, are we to believe that this is the man that's going to make black men great again? See that?
Yeah, that's heavy. Well, and it's an undeniable message. We expect that it will break through, but what does Kamala Harris need to say in the affirmative? I mean, what plan does she need to outline, or does she specifically for black men? In other words, you made a very compelling argument against Trump. What is the argument for Kamala Harris as far as black men are concerned? I'd like to Dr. Ali to take a stab at that also. But go ahead, Dr. Mack.
I will put Brother Malcolm front and center, because if it's one black man that most of us as black men have a great deal of respect for, it is Brother Malcolm X. And let's not let history die. So when Brother Malcolm said that the most disrespected person in America is the black woman, he is talking specifically to us as black men. Let us now rally behind our sisters. The same thing. These men now want to come in. So to answer your question, what we need to do in this day of time where you got social media, these young folks are, they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram. So use that same type of campaigning to make sure that you keep hammering those words. But then go back into our history and take those black men like Brother Malcolm, who absolutely understood. And don't fabricate anything. Let Trump's words speak for themselves, and then ask the question to us as black men: is this the man that's going to quote unquote make us great again? So we completely have to keep hammering that conversation, having those conversations with them. No need in demonizing them, just simply try to appeal to them. But I will say this: I believe in my life that there comes a time where reason and stupid cannot have a conversation. And so we have to be as reasonable as we can. Sister Harris has to continue to simply put those facts in. And whatever missteps she made, because as they talk about what she did as the Attorney General in California, remember, she preceded Brown, who was the Attorney General, and Brown had this whole stance against black folks. Now, if she made some mistakes there, own up to that. But clearly what we have seen from her actions, the sister is down with us like 4 flats.
Right.
So we have just maybe 1 minute left, 30 seconds left. Dr. Santiago Ali, you have done so much environmental and health activism around the world. And we, of course, have seen our Supreme Court absolutely gut the Chevron, doctrine. Yeah. What do you think needs to happen as far as like these candidates and protecting the environment and the health? Like, if you would say the one thing that you want them to hear from them about this, what would that be?
The one thing that would be is that we have to continue to make investments in the communities that have been unseen and unheard for quite a while now. The current administration has begun to do that. When we think about Flint and Jackson, Mississippi, and the kids that were drinking that tainted lead water. And we know that that impacts you both neurologically, in relationship to education and being able to get a job down the road. We've got to have a president who will make sure that this toxic pollution is no longer going to be in our communities. And that same toxic pollution is also one of the drivers in the climate crisis, and our communities continue to get hit first and worst. So we should be looking at who actually cares about our community, who makes investments in our community, and who understands the future sets of both impacts and opportunities.
Absolutely. Well, look at the time. It is 6 o'clock on the West Coast, 9 p.m. on the East. Thank you so much, Dr. Mack. Thank you so much, Dr. Santiago Ali. We appreciate you brothers both for coming and spending this time conversating with us. I said conversating because that's what we're doing. And as we all go to watch the debate right now, come back afterwards. We're going to be talking to the newsrooms across the nation that are a part of Word in Black and hearing from them what the post-debate analysis is. Be safe. Looking forward to it.
Be safe. We'll see you on the other side.
See? I did.
Well, we are back. That was the first and probably the only presidential debate of this election season. Good evening, friends, and again, welcome back. My name is Liz Courquet-Lesaulnier. I am the managing director of Word in Black, and here late at night with my esteemed colleague, Joe Williams. Woo!
I'm Joe Williams, and I'm the deputy managing director of Word in Black. And what a night! It was really something. There was a lot of hype around this debate, and it seemed, in my opinion, to deliver. A lot of verbal punches thrown, a lot of points made, a lot of points scored, but most of them seemed to be on Kamala Harris's side. Liz, what was your impression?
Well, other than they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, needing to be like an SNL skit at some point. I mean,
It's gonna be. It's gonna be.
It's got to be. She definitely had him on the ropes, and she got under his skin completely. And but it was also nice to see them really getting into some of the issues and really demonstrating that there are clear divisions between these two candidates if folks did not know that already. So we're a Black Media Collaborative, and we have the fortune of being able to access what is happening in our newsrooms and with our reporting teams all across the nation. So we're going to get into some of the dialogue with those folks to see what it was that they took away, what the watch parties where they're at, what was the reaction of their audience, because that was a lot. That was a lot. And to the fact checkers out there who were trying to fact check that, there is a lot of unpack with that. So that's for sure. Whew.
Indeed. It was really something. And I think that there's going to be a lot to talk about. So let's kind of jump right in. We are going first to the Amsterdam News.
Yes, New York Amsterdam News with their publisher, Eleanor Tatum. We are so thrilled that she is joining us from New York City. Hi, Eleanor.
Hi there. Really glad to be with both of you.
So glad to have you. So what did you think?
Well, it definitely was some kind of debate. I was listening for it, and I heard it brought up, the full page ads that Donald Trump took out during the Central Park 5 or the Exonerated 5 case back in 1989. And bringing that up, was really important, at least to me here in New York, and I think to a lot of New Yorkers, when we think about his disdain, Donald Trump's disdain for Black men, and the fact that he called for the death penalty for the 5 young men that were accused of an attack in Central Park, which they were eventually exonerated of after serving 13 years in prison.
So it seems like that really came close to home, and that was something that really caught the attention of you. But I'm kind of wondering, what's going to be your headline tomorrow if you were to put one on right now based on what you saw this evening?
The Donald lies again.
That's a good one. That's a good pun.
And what do you think of Kamala Harris's performance? We knew what we were going to get with Donald Trump. Did she make the case that she is presidential material?
Oh, absolutely. We know that she is a litigator. We know that she can speak, and she did a fantastic job. She actually talked about the issues, whereas I do not think that Donald Trump ever actually answered a question that he was asked. Mm-hmm. He always answered something else that vaguely resembled an answer to a question that he formulated in his own head, but not the one that came out of the journalist's mouth. He may ask, the journalist may have asked about one war and he talked about another, but he never directly answered a question. And she actually answered the questions that were asked of her.
What do you think is the number one sort of policy position that came out of this debate tonight that is going to resonate with New Yorkers?
The number one. Well, I think there's so many, but I think immigration is going to resonate a lot. But I think in very different ways, because New York and this whole country is made up of immigrants. We're all immigrants here in New York. And the lies that Donald Trump has told about immigrants are just abhorrent. And whether it's the new ones that he's saying today about Haitian immigrants and
the dogs, eating dogs, that's
insane. I didn't even want to say it because I don't want to
legitimize.
Yeah. Exactly. Or the ones that he's saying about the fact that immigrants are more apt to commit crimes, which is also not true. Mm-hmm. We know that they actually are less likely to commit crimes than the rest of the population. Mm-hmm. And so, we look at New York City and we have a lot of immigrants here. We have a lot of migrants here. We have problems when it comes to those issues, but it's not of their doing. Mm-hmm. It is because of the circumstances that are at hand. And we have to find solutions to it. But those are on the city level as well as on the federal level. And everyone has to work together. And I am confident that when a good president comes into power, that those solutions will happen. Now, if President Donald Trump becomes president again, I think there will be blood on the streets.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Publisher Tatum. We appreciate all of the hard work that you do. And I really do want to see if that headline is going to be on the paper tomorrow, because, it was, like I said, the fact checkers had their work cut out for them, because, there was a lot of. We appreciate you. Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, and now next up, we're going to go to Charm City, just up the road where I am in suburban Washington, D.C. And every time I see this paper, I keep thinking of the old phrase that I heard when I was a child in the radio ads, because it was in the Afro. So let's bring in Alexis Taylor from the Afro in Charm City of Maryland. Alexis, good to see you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So what are your reactions to what you just saw?
Liz, you know that there were so many things to unpack from this debate, but one thing that I can say, I was glad that they started off with the economy. And I'll tell you why. There are so many issues at stake in this election. You got climate change, you have healthcare, immigration. We know what the big ticket items are. But I think that in this election, it's important to think about where the candidates are on those issues, to take action with your vote. However, it's hard to think and take action when you're hungry. It's hard to really think about climate change and why the storms are coming harder and with more frequency. It's hard to think about why it's raining when you don't have shelter from the rain. And so I was glad that they started off talking about the economy. I was glad that they talked about closing the wealth gap, bringing up all of those issues, because, it's important to know where they are, but it's also important to know where they are in their plan. And I think what we saw here tonight is that Kamala Harris does have a more solid plan when it comes to the economic side of things than what we heard from former President Donald Trump tonight. I was appreciative of the details that she did share and how she wants to close the economic wealth gap, how she wants to invest in families with young children, the investments into small businesses and the investments into the home ownership. Mm-hmm. And so, the details is what I'm looking for. I don't like it when it's a debate and we get into name calling and we get bogged down into he said, she said. Like, I need details. I need to know what have you been thinking about to put in place on day one? What have you been thinking about?
And so you pretty much heard what you expected to hear. Did you hear what you needed to hear from Kamala Harris? I mean, we know Donald Trump has been in the Oval Office before, but did you hear things that made you see Kamala Harris as a president? And did you hear enough of those details to convince you that she is?
I think that on the detail end, there's always room to know more. But I did hear more from Kamala, and I did at the end of the debate, I did see her more in that president role. When it comes to who's the better candidate, I mean, it's clear who the better candidate is. And I think of all the independent voters, the undecided voters, the people who are still up in the air about who they're going to choose. When it comes to who has a plan to fix some of these big ticket items that are issues that are plaguing middle and lower class, it's Kamala Harris. The question isn't who is the better candidate. We know who the better candidate is. Every time that they asked Donald Trump for a plan tonight, I only heard one plan, and that was when he spoke about the tariffs. Every other time that they asked him about a plan, and mind you, he spoke about the tariffs in regards to the economic, helping people economically. But I love that David Muir came right back and said, okay, but experts have said that that's going to put a burden on American people. So, that was the only plan we heard from Donald Trump tonight. Everything else, he went around it. He changed the subject like he normally does. And it's clear he does not have a plan. But as far as Kamala Harris, yes, I did hear some things that I personally am interested in. I want to buy a house. I want to have children. And so the $6,000 for the first year of life for a new baby, absolutely, I'm behind it. $25,000 for a down payment for a home, I'm behind it. And so, what I encourage people to do is look at what Kamala Harris has done, look at her record. And if you don't know what her record is, go to afro.com, because we have covered the things that she's done while she has been in office. We've covered.
Yeah, you need to go to afro.com anyway to check it out and see what they've got uncovered. Sorry, we have to leave it there, Alexis, but it's great seeing you again, as always. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
you
you
for having me.
See you soon. All right, up next, we have our friends that aren't too far away from the folks at the Afro, the Washington Informer. We have Juan Ben Jr., managing editor of the Howard University Hilltop. Welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm super happy to be here.
So happy to have you. Okay, so one question that I have that I wanted to ask Alexis, but you are in the area as well. You all just had a shooting at a high school in the DMV, right? And yet one thing that VP Harris said was that both she and Walz are both gun owners, and they have no intention of taking anyone's guns away. How do you think that's going to play with your readership, given the fact that there's just the shooting there, given the levels of gun violence that our communities in the DMV are seeing?
Yeah, so I tuned into the debate from a debate watch party on Howard University's campus. And this was a room filled with hundreds of students who were eager to see Vice President Kamala Harris, an alum of this university, and face up against Donald Trump on the world stage. And one thing I talked to many students in the room. We had reporters from the Hilltop talk to many students in the room. And one thing that kept up repeatedly that they were eager to hear either candidate speak about was gun control and gun rights. And this comes not only after this shooting that happened at a high school in Maryland, but the shooting that we saw last week in Georgia that took the lives of 2 teachers and 2 students at that school. And I think that students they really want to see a politician really advocate for their lives and for their safety. Like I said, I'm in this room talking to students. These are college students, many of whom remember just 5 years ago or just 6-7 years ago, being in high school and being remembering Parkland and remembering school shootings that have happened. And so I think this is a generation that is really, really eager and looking to hear a politician really take a strong stance and make a case.
Do you think you heard what you needed to hear from Vice President Harris to feel that security? And what was the reaction in the room when she did say that she owned a weapon?
Yeah, so, I'm going to be honest. I did step away from the debate watch party at the very end to get ready for this broadcast. And so I did not hear her words or hear how the room reacted to it. But I will say that I know that, like I said, students that I did talk to, they wanted to hear someone take a strong stance on this issue.
Mm-hmm. And you're also a member of the generation that's going to leave college, maybe with 6 or 7 figures trailing behind you in debt. A lot of the discussion, or much of the discussion, was about student debt. Did you hear what you needed to hear? And who do you think has the better plan to help young people tackle student debt and help them graduate college to a good job and even make college affordable over the long haul?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, young people, we know who has delivered at least some on student debt, and that is Kamala Harris under the Biden administration. Over the past few years, we have seen millions of dollars being wiped away from student debt. But, I will say, like I said, like my little header says, I'm managing editor of our student newspaper, and we've done a lot of reporting on what students think about student debt. And a lot of students, current students feel that, that the debt that's currently being wiped away, it's not really touching them. It's not really affecting them. And when they graduate, it's probably not going to either. Lots of the student debt removal policies that we're seeing are directly impacting people who have had debt for quite a while and who are lower on the income scale, and that's not truly affecting students who are in school right now and who are going to be graduating and going to have to start paying back their student loans pretty soon after they graduate. And so I think students they definitely want a candidate who is going to deliver to them directly, and I'm not sure exactly if we heard that tonight.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you were going to go to press tonight, what's going to be your lead? What's your headline coming out of the debate?
Oh gosh. Well, I think my headline might be something along the lines of, Kamala Harris wants to. Gosh, you put me on the spot.
Sorry.
I don't know if I could give you a headline, but what I think I can give you is my big takeaway from the night, and that I think would be what I go into print night or whatever with, and that would be Kamala Harris. A couple times she's talked about how Donald Trump, we're just hearing him. This is just another word from the same tired playbook. And when I was in that room, it was very clear to me that many of the students in that room could really feel that. Every chance he got, he would bring up immigration. Every chance he got, he would spew another lie about the election or about Kamala Harris and Vice President Walz's, plans on abortions and different things like that. And I think this country, and I think that room that I was in, students are very, very tired of that. And I think that, they're ready for a change. And so I think that's what I would lead with.
Well, that's excellent analysis for Spot News. So give you an A. Thanks very much, Juan Ben Jr. of the Howard University Hilltop Road, one of the finest newspapers on college campuses. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So nice to have the next generation of reporters represented there. Thank you so much, Washington Informer, for that. And up next, we have Patrick Washington from the Dallas Weekly. We're so happy to have you here, Patrick. So what's your takeaway? What is your headline for tomorrow?
My headline? Oh, I'd leave that to the people who make headlines. But let's see. I don't know.
Well, did you hear what you needed to hear? Did you see Kamala Harris as presidential material? A lot of people were talking about, there were doubts about getting to know her. People didn't know her. They wonder if a woman can be president. Did she seem presidential to you?
I mean, she's always had that. I mean, I think that's been sort of the pillar of her career. I don't think I didn't hear anything that I wasn't expecting to hear from either person. I was really actually thinking it was a lot more tame than it was going to be a lot more wild than it was. So I felt like Vice President Harris did a fantastic job of, let's call them Donald Trump's points, really just addressing those and really sort of giving the vibe that they're pointless. And all these fake facts he had, she really did a great job of presenting actual factual information plus a plan, and then condemning him for being a, she never said liar, but when she brought up his, when she counted all of his statements, it really did confirm, like, you are a liar. Like, we know this. You're the AR-15 of lies, right? Like, you just keep spraying, right? And so it was like, that was what I thought she did a fantastic job at. In that, she was very presidential. Unlike the last debate we saw, she was able to address almost every, toxic point, every stupid thing, and every, just basic falsehood that he said, and was also presenting her own, policies, ideas, which I think was on her part very good in a strategy, because that has been a big criticism of her. Even when she was a vice president, it was like, what are you doing? And, what's your what's your policy? And now she's been able to very, very clearly articulate in several different areas what those are going to be and how they're going to be different from previous administrations, et cetera.
Now, one question I have for you, Patrick, is there was obviously a ton of conversation, everything about immigration, and also legal, illegal, all of that sort of stuff, which is, affecting the entire nation, but obviously affects you all differently in Texas. And of course, the insinuation from Trump that Latino immigrants are taking Black jobs, right? What's your reaction to that? Or what is that conversation looking like in Dallas right now?
The immigration conversation in Dallas isn't far beyond, like, just, we want more of a liberal approach to immigration policy. That's pretty much Dallas. Texas is a different story. Texas is very much a red state. And then we have a vile governor who is just hell-bent on proving that humanity isn't worth, protecting while he does that stuff. So there's a lot of disagreement on how that is happening. The general consensus is something needs to happen about immigration across the border. From what I've heard from people I know who are basically involved in it, the rhetoric around immigration has always been consistently negative and stereotypical. That is always going to be something that is going to have to be combated, because as we heard many times, like, the stats, the things presented about immigration, about crime and all that, are all lies. So it really is about, who believes these lies and who understands they are lies. And unfortunately in Texas, there is a very powerful machine, a propaganda machine on several major issues. Immigration, guns, and abortion are pretty much consistently in the conversation.
So drill down on the immigration thing a little bit deeper, though. Black jobs. How's the conversation going in the Black community about that?
No one ever heard about Black job. Immigration is taking Black. Like, what does that mean? We have a lot of, we'll Latino. We're predominantly Mexican based. Here in Texas, it's been history. That is construction, hard labor. Certain things. House care. These kind of things. We're always asking, like, whose job is that? Like, because Black folk have lawyers, engineers, doctors. They're civil servants, bus driver. Like, what job is a Black person not able to get because an immigrant got it, right? And that's the kind of thing, like, nobody understands this particular argument in this particular. It is just offensive. I think every Black person's like, what are you talking about? It's even doubly here because it's like we have a huge immigrant economy, right? Like, it is well known. Like, I don't walk into restaurants that don't have Mexicans in them. Like, it's not something you do. It's like, that doesn't make sense. And plus, we have a new Southeast Asian immigration swell here that has become very positive with just cultural exchange. So I don't understand this argument. I think this is a very targeted propaganda piece. This is not. It's like a Black conservative. It's like, this is not for us. This is for, like, people to say, look, them too.
Well, unfortunately, we have to stop you there and leave it for the moment. But Patrick Washington, really great to get your insights from the Dallas Weekly. Great talking to you.
Thank you so much, y'all.
Thank you so much. So up next, we have the Sacramento Observer joining us.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Wilhelmina
Hello,
Kay with the
friends.
Sacramento Observer. We are here at the Historic Black Honors College at Sac State, where we gather with a couple of students to watch the debate. We're here with Dr. Luke Wood, the president of Sac State, and students Miriam and Miracle. Dr. Wood, could you share with us your what you thought about the debate tonight?
Well, I thought it was a lot of verbal jabs back and forth. In many ways, it was almost like a fight. I think that Vice President Harris held her own and was able to show her perspectives and where she's coming from in terms of her policies. I thought that President Trump, did not seem as lucid, and I thought it was a difficult debate for him, but I also think that it was a good conversation, though it was tough to watch.
I really respected how thoughtful and calm Kamala Harris was throughout the whole debate, and she really laid out a lot of solutions to like some problems plaguing United States, and I feel like that's what we need most importantly, and also having her as the next president is really going to uplift our society, in my opinion, at least.
Well, I believe that she really did great, Miss VP Kamala. She really did amazing, and the thing that stood out to me was when she said she's here to uplift everyone and not just, put us down, which was really amazing. And I felt like Trump wasn't really like talking more about, his plan for us as a community. So I feel like, you should get more into that. And I felt like Ms. Kamala, did great about everything.
And then, is there anything within the debate tonight you wish would have been discussed more, expanded on, or is there anything that was missing?
Well, we're at a university, so obviously education is important to us, and that was definitely not part of the conversation at all. They talked at the very beginning about opening up around the economy being the most important issue that voters are talking about. But the number one driver of a healthy economy is a healthy education system. It is the best engine for economic development, and it wasn't even part of the conversation tonight. So I thought that was incredibly lacking and something I'm looking forward to hearing more of in the future.
Thank you all so much. Back to you all.
Thank you so much, Sacramento Observer. We're so glad to be able to have, again, the next generation of young Black people.
Thank you. They did a really nice job. And it is important to get the next generation's comments because they're going to be a really crucial demographic in this election. Everybody's talking about it. Harris has gotten a lot of enthusiasm among young college-age voters. There were some discussions of college debt, but yeah, he's absolutely right. There was not a lot of drilling down on education. We didn't hear a lot of specific plans on how they would address these kinds of issues.
All right. Up next, we have the Chicago Defender, my hometown, in the house. Hey. We're so happy to have you here. So what's your reaction? What did you think about what you heard tonight?
Since it's football season, I can't help but be compelled to think about the old football coach who could not adapt his playbook to his current opponent. And that's what I saw here with former President Trump. From the outset, Vice President Harris established herself as the aggressor. We saw that with the handshake, her coming over to him. And what it really amounted to me was it was the bully being bullied here throughout.
Right. Just when you say that, do you think you heard what you needed to hear? And in the context of this debate, was there enough specific proposals for Black America between these two candidates?
I absolutely did not hear enough. And I think that was maybe the travesty in all of this, is that it became more of a back and forth of attacks, right? A lot of them baseless as well. So we didn't hear enough, as the gentleman who was on before me talk about the student loan debt issue, which impacts African Americans at a disproportionate rate. We didn't hear enough about even the climate crisis, I would call it, and each candidate's plans to address this problem with, as you know, in our community, is impacting us also at a disproportionate rate. Even though it's impacting everyone, our communities, especially here in Chicago, are being deeply impacted by climate change issues.
Right.
I know your new mayor, Brandon Johnson, has really, adopted a very green platform for that all across the city, which is, so needed, like you're saying. What do you think, though? The other thing that I think about that I've heard lots of my family members in Chicago talking about is the issue of migrants and feeling like folks are getting resources when they come to Chicago that Black folks who've grown up there have not been receiving for years and years and years. Do you think that Trump's remarks along those lines are going to resonate with Black voters in the city?
Honestly, there is some sentiment about that. I do a radio show locally here where we get callers, and that's expressed a lot. How come new arrivals are receiving rental assistance? They're receiving shelter. What about the generations of people who've been homeless here, mostly Black in the city of Chicago? How come they're not getting the assistance? And so I think that that's a very credible argument with members of our community who feel like for years that they've been overlooked.
Now, given that the crisis was, in a sense, an artificial one, and by that I mean you have people, governors in southern border states, really importing migrants to the city. Is that more on the agenda of Black Americans talking about immigration? We had a previous guest from Dallas talking about Black jobs. Do you think that that part of the rhetoric is hitting home, especially in the context of having migrants getting resources and longtime Black American residents really aren't?
So it is hitting home, but it's a spurious argument. And that's the travesty in all this. As Mayor Johnson says, in terms of the migrant crisis or the new arrivals here that have flooded our city, this is a federal problem. This is a federal issue, right? So with that said, there is a perception that has a lot of credibility in some people's eyes that they are getting preferential treatment. But I would say that I would compel people to also investigate deeply. There are services that exist for people if you are, if you lack affordable housing in the city of Chicago, if you are unhoused in the city of Chicago. There are organizations that have been on the ground for generations helping people. So I think the message has been skewed. There's not enough clear communication about the programs that actually do exist that have been helping people who look like me for years.
Absolutely. The other thing, of course, that has been brought up was that education was not discussed, like it should have been. And of course, in Chicago, it's been one of those cities where dozens and dozens of schools have been closed, where there's the whole system of you have to, if you want to get into Peyton versus, getting into one of the other schools, the divisions that you have there along racial and economic lines. What would you have wanted to hear from the candidates tonight that would address that?
Wow.
I know, right? It's
well, and I'm saying wow because this is such a hyper local issue in the city of Chicago with the Chicago's Teachers Union, which is one of the most powerful unions in the country. The whole idea of really looking at examining these magnet schools is how do we right the wrongs of disparity that's gone on in cities like Chicago for years, where Black students have not been getting their fair share, access to resources, even having librarians in the school, right? And so I think that I'd like to hear candidates talk about that. How do you enrich the public school system so that it benefits everyone?
Right. Well, that's a very prescient note on which to close this particular conversation. Takuma Roback of the Chicago Defender. Great talking to you. Thanks very much for your insight.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Amir Shah from the Atlanta Daily World. Hello, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Fantastic. We're so happy to see you. So given, everything that has court case-wise happened in Georgia, what was your reaction to the debate?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually here at a debate party here in Atlanta at a movie theater, and it was a packed house, and you could just hear the people, the enthusiasm of it. Anytime VP Harris had a lot of one-liners, and she did what we call checked Trump on several occasions, and it was interesting that Trump did bring up Fonnie Willis, which he is indicted on a RICO case down here for attempting to steal the election in 2020. And I wanted them to kind of hone in on that, which they didn't. But I wish that they would have kind of discussed those cases a bit more because, especially down here in Georgia, with the 2020 election interference case, it's major, and they have them on record attempting to get 11,000 votes, over 11,000 votes. So I wish that would have been highlighted a bit more during the debate.
Now you're in a swing state. I'm assuming that you're seeing ads every 5 minutes portraying Trump as this and Harris as that. Did you hear what you needed to hear to make? I mean, I think that's pretty much clear that a lot of the Black majority in Atlanta will go for Vice President Harris. But did you hear what you needed to hear? And do you think what you heard will be able to sway a lot of the Atlanta undecided voters?
Well, I think it was a clear distinction of two candidates tonight. It was one person who seems prepared for the job, and one person who's just not serious. As she called him, an unserious man. I mean, he created some lie about pets being eaten, and it was just chaos. It was just like what are you talking about? And I think the American people will see that there's a clear contrast. And so I think particularly for individuals in swing states and individuals who are undecided, I think this debate pretty much, laid the foundation of what's at stake. VP Harris, she talked a lot about the future. She talked a lot about what's going to be next. Trump didn't really give any policies. He mostly blamed the Biden and Harris administration for what's happening now. And that was basically his biggest talking point, was to blame. He didn't really give insight of what he would do.
Looks like we're having some technical difficulties.
To me, that was a major issue.
One question that I have for you is, there has been plenty of controversy over the past year or so over Cop City being built in Atlanta, with so many people being against it. And of course, the argument that Kamala Harris is the top cop and, arrested dozens and dozens and dozens of Black men. How do you think her record as Attorney General, as someone who, was elected to uphold the law in that way, is playing given the controversy over Cop City?
Yeah, well, I think it's a misnomer that she was, locking up Black men. I think that's just a fact. Well, that's just something that's not factual, and that's been perpetuated a lot. If you go back on her record, you can see that she actually created programs, divergent programs, one of the first in the state of California, for individuals who had drug issues. And so we have to really, not perpetuate those lies. In terms of what's happening here in Cop City, that's an environmental issue. It's an issue of gentrification in certain communities. That's an issue that's really hyper local. And so I don't know if Harris's record really is connected to anything that's happening directly with Cop City. But also, I wish that they would have spoke, kind of talked about the shooting that occurred here, close to Atlanta, that occurred last week, and they didn't really talk about that. And that's a major issue, a school shooting where a 14-year-old kid, bought an automatic rifle into a school and just opened fire. And not one word was mentioned during the debate about that school shooting. And so I think it's a national crisis. Of course, VP Harris talked about herself being a gun owner, but again, there's a lot of policies in terms of gun laws that especially down here in Georgia, where there's a lack of gun laws. And so anyone can just go into a gun shop and buy a gun without any license or anything of that nature. So I wish they would have talked a little bit more about that, because that's a major issue and it just occurred last week.
All right. Very much so. Very much so. Well, A.R. Shaw of the Atlanta Daily World, thank you so much for your insight, and we appreciate you taking time out to talk to us.
Thank you.
Well, coming up next, we have Aswad Walker from the Houston Defender.
Aswad.
Hey,
Houston Defender.
Houston Defender. How are you doing? What do you think? Have you recovered from that, from what you saw?
I'm still trying to come down, because my first thought was the moderators did a much better job this go round than last go round, but still there's this willingness to allow Trump to bully them to death. And I mean, I was in an auditorium full of folk who were watching the debate and wanted to scream every single time, because they just allow this. And the thing I thought about was, this is just him. He has absolutely no regard for any rules, any laws. But the thing is, his entire life, he's been able to get away with it.
Right. Well, that's very much present. We kind of got what we knew we would get with Donald Trump. Flip the script and talk about Vice President Harris. I mean, you were in a room full of people. What were the reactions inside the room? And do you think you saw and heard what you needed to see and hear in order for her to be the next president of the United States?
Well, I didn't even need to see the debate to know that she needs to be the next president of the United States. But what I heard was people really felt when she stood her ground. When you can call it going low, you can call it defending yourself, whatever you want to call it. She was willing to call a spade. And there was this one moment in the debate where she said, "This dude," and there was this dramatic pause, and everyone was filling in the blanks with all the MFs and everything else that she was probably calling him in her mind. And just, the room erupted. And every time she called him out on a lie and backed it up with facts, the room went crazy. And I guess just to answer your question, I appreciated the fact that she was willing to do that, and all the while seeking to turn the page, as she would say. The American people want to move forward. They don't want this same clown show. They don't want this same madness, because really that was all he was giving. Whenever he would ask a question, he would just go back to his consistent dog whistles. And I thought one of the most powerful lines was what she said early in the debate. She said that under with Trump, we're talking about the worst attack on democracy since the Civil War. I was like, damn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she most definitely went there. Do you think you're in a red state, obviously, not a whole lot of blue dots there. Do you think, in hearing what you're hearing, did she talk to Black America and talk about the concerns that we have as a community, or in enough detail to move the needle? And secondly, do you think this debate will move the needle with the general public? I mean, it's neck and neck so far. Is the narrative going to change based on this debate?
I'm not sure if there's going to be a lot of change regarding the general public. And I really do not believe that there are any undecided voters out there. I think everyone knows who they're voting for. They're either going to vote or not going to vote. And the undecided, many of them are just ashamed to say they're voting for the racist white nationalists. But in terms of moving the needle, I'm not sure if it moved the needle, because both of them, I thought, did a good job of speaking to who are the folk that are seeking to elect them. My hope and prayer is that if there are any on the margins, that they were willing to see the stark difference between the two candidates. But I'm not sure if that happened. In terms of things I would like to have heard more from Vice President Harris, I would have liked to hear a stronger stance on behalf of the Palestinian people. She did mention that, she was committed to a two-state solution. I would have liked to heard her bring up some level of fight and stance for the poor and the working poor, because they never get anybody's attention. But like Reverend Barber said, anyone that captures that group, that's like a sleeping giant of the electorate that is just being ignored.
Well, we appreciate your insight, Oswald. Always great to see and hear from you. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Next up, we have from the Michigan Chronicle, Jeremy Allen.
Jeremy Allen, good to see you. Welcome to the program.
Good evening. Glad to see you guys.
So give me your first impressions of what you saw.
My first impressions were that, Kamala came into the debate knowing what she wanted to accomplish. I think it was pretty clear that she knew that Donald Trump would show his cards pretty early and pretty often about how disingenuous he is, and how he's been spewing a lot of lies to his low education voter demographic. And I think she did a very good job at allowing him to showcase the things that he's been spreading at all of his rallies and across the country to a larger audience tonight.
Well, also, you're another one that we've talked to in a swing state. Give us the view from that swing state. Do you think Michigan is now going to lean towards Kamala Harris, or is it still very much going to be up in play based on this debate tonight?
I don't think the debate is really what moved the needle. I think this year we've seen Kamala Harris visit Michigan on 6 different occasions. She's been campaigning specifically in Detroit very hard. She's got a great ally in the United Auto Workers, who carry a strong base, not just in Southeastern Michigan, but all across the state. She's been checking the boxes with unions all across the state. I think what people were looking for here in Southeastern Michigan was what she hit the nail on the head with when she spoke about opportunity economies. You know, here in Detroit, we're really reliant on a historic, affordable living area, right? And that's all across the Midwest, really. But she tapped into that, talking about bringing back affordable healthcare, continuing to bring down the cost of groceries and housing. And I think that's really what people are looking for. I think what'll really be the determining factor over these next 50 plus days is how she can show that she can do that, as opposed to just saying that she can do that.
She also really hit him with the Affordable Care Act, which is obviously of great importance as far as, you know, making sure that more Black folks and more people in general have health insurance that they need. How do you think where the debate went on that issue is going to play for people in Michigan?
I think it's a huge issue. We're very underinsured, and Detroit specifically, our proximity to Canada, it's already been proven that a lot of people will drive 15 minutes to 30 minutes right across the border for more affordable healthcare in another country. And so I think it's the people here have a propensity to seek out more affordable options. So I think keeping the ACA on the table as an option for not just Michiganders, but Americans, and ensuring that the cost is low and the quality of care is high, that's something that people in Michigan here are continuously seeking out. And I think, again, she did speak to her commitment to those issues. And those are things that that have continuously resonated with Michiganders on our continued visits to Michigan this year. And I think they'll continue to do so again, over these last 8 weeks of campaign season.
Now, what do you make of her? What do you make of her responses on the Palestinian question? Our last guest, Oswald Walker from Houston, was talking about how he'd like to have heard her say a little bit more about the Palestinians, about the plight of the poor. She didn't go there. She also reiterated a very strong stance towards Israel. What do you make of those answers, and do you think those answers are what people will accept in Michigan, which is home to one of the largest Palestinian populations in the country?
Yeah, Michigan, Southeastern Michigan is home to the largest Arab community in the country, in the world, outside of the Middle East. And that's really been a hot button issue every time she's come. Even President Biden, during his visits, all of their rallies have been interrupted by pro-Palestinian protesters who have been yearning for the president and the vice president to be more impactful about their calls to a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. I pretty intently watch Black Twitter and local Detroit Twitter during live events like this, and I did see some outrage from some of the Middle Eastern community, Palestinian community here in Southeastern Detroit. If for nothing more, they wanted Vice President Harris to respond to Donald Trump's allegations that she hates Palestinians. And I think her failure to do that left a lot of people feeling uneasy. But what I do think resonated was her call for an end to the war. I think people know that she genuinely wants this to come to an end. I think she genuinely, and I think people understand that she genuinely believes that both, residents of both Israel and Palestine have the right to defend themselves. But the way that they've gone about it, which she articulated, is not humane. And so I think even saying that has left a good impression upon the Arab community here in Southeastern Michigan.
One question I have for you, there was some talk about, the environment there. And of course, given, the automakers, the industry there in Detroit, this is, of course, a hot topic there. How do you think this transition to clean energy is playing out and the championing of clean energy from, a potential Harris administration is going to play with voters there?
I think it's going to be well received by so many people. There are, I don't think the auto workers are concerned about a transition to electric vehicles, putting a stop to their workforce and how they continuously evolve as an economic driver here in the state of Michigan. So I think, air quality and environmental justice are huge concerns for people in Michigan. And I think moving to a more environmentally friendly economic system for progression and for opportunities for Michiganders is going to be very well received.
Well, that's a good note on which to end, and we hope that that's plays out. Jeremy Allen of the Michigan Defender, Michigan Chronicle, beg your pardon. So very nice to have you with us. Apologies, it's a long night, but very nice to have you with us, and thanks very much for your insight.
Thank you guys both.
Thank you for joining us. Up next, we have Donnell Suggs from the Atlanta Voice. Welcome, Donnell. Where are you? Can you hear us?
Good evening. How y'all?
Yes.
I can. Yes, I can.
Fantastic. You're at a debate watch party right now?
No, I am in Philadelphia where the media is over at the Philadelphia Convention Center, and the debate was a half a mile away over at the Constitution Center.
Okay. Were you in the overflow room or the spin room?
Spin room. Spin room is now an overflow room at this point because everyone is down here. And allegedly, former President Trump might stop by.
Paint a picture for us. What are you seeing right now?
Well, we have. It's spin room time now, where people are walking around with signs with certain folks' names on it, and then they're all stopping talking to the media. I'll just throw a couple names out there: Laura Trump, Gavin Newsom, Anthony Scaramucci. I talked to Senator Tim Scott, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone's making their rounds, talking to the media about their reactions to what they just saw about a half an hour ago.
Now, what are you hearing in the spin room? I mean, is it dominated by the fact that one side or the other thinks that they took the prize, and who's making the biggest impression? Can you hear us?
I can, and I heard your question. I'm hearing. Well, okay. We'll use Tim Scott as an example. He's still towing the party line. He did credit Vice President Harris for standing up during this debate, and then obviously having a better debate than President Biden had a couple months ago. But he still felt like when I asked him if former President Trump hurt himself or helped himself, he said he thinks he helped himself. That's one of the few people that told me that. Most folks are telling me that she won this round. It felt like she kind of came out, stuck to the topics, was very poignant about what she wanted, didn't necessarily answer anything about abortion. She kind of skipped over that. But other than that, she felt like she was the one that kind of kept this thing afloat, whereas former President Trump went all over the place. I'm hearing that. Again, I'm not hearing that a ton from Republicans, but I am hearing that a ton from people here.
Now, one thing that, we're seeing is that Trump and his surrogates feel that the moderation was very unfair. What is your reaction to that?
I can't imagine why they would feel that way. I thought both David Muir and the young lady whose name I'm forgetting right now did fantastic. I thought they kind of kept them on point and gave them a minute to rebuttal and then jump right back into it. So I can't imagine why they would.
Another question
it felt
I
fair
have,
to me. It really did.
It felt fair. In the closing statements,
and much more organized than what happened at CNN.
Oh, that's good. In the closing statements, VP Harris focused on the future. How did that, how do you think that plays with folks back in Atlanta? I think that we have a little bit of a delay.
Well, for my story, I kind of used the boxing analogy, being in Philly and all, about how she had a chance to throw a couple more punches at the end, and he didn't. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we got you.
Yeah. Well, long story short, in my story, I kind of piggybacked on the fact that she ended with a positive message, whereas he ended in an attack on her and a semi-complaint, and he talked about how terrible the country is. again, if this is the last, if that last 2 minutes is all you heard, you wouldn't vote for someone that tells you this country is in shambles, it's terrible, and everything's going to hell. You would vote for the person that says, hey, listen, we can start anew. I could be a new chapter. So that's why I made sure to put that in my story, because I felt like she ended it strong, where he ended it the same way he started it, complaining.
Now, one quick question that I have for you is, you're representing a swing state. What's the view from there? Take us to Georgia. What do you think they're going to be saying tomorrow about this debate?
She's got a massive amount of support in Georgia. I want to stress that so does he. There are parts of Georgia with former President Trump is the only option. That being said, they're not as big as what Vice President Harris is doing. I feel like tonight she might have even won over some people who are on the fence, those independent voters, those folks who kind of don't like that he's always talking about how bad the country is. I think tonight was a great example of her coming out and sticking to topic and saying, hey, listen, enough with the lies and enough with how bad things are. We can change something new. So there's someone out there that was going to the right that might end up going to the left, because she was really strong in this. This is night and day. This is 180 from covering the debate in CNN a couple months ago, and the feeling you had right after it was over that the world's going to end. This is 180 from that. So I can't wait to get home and really hear what folks are really going to say about it. But again, I'm on my way to DC after this for the Congressional Black Caucus, so that should be interesting. Getting some insider opinion on what happened today.
Do you think she said what she needed to say to reach those voters? Clearly you do.
I do. I felt like she went right to the points and addressed a number of times that she didn't even harp on the fact that he was a 34 count felon. She didn't even harp on that. She only mentioned it once. He mentioned Joe Biden's name 7 times. I counted. Joe Biden's not even debating. He mentioned him 7 times. I think she stayed on point. So if you were wondering who she was or what she stands for, you got some of that today. If you were hoping that he would change a little bit and kind of focus, you did not get that today. You got the same thing. Name calling, talking about Joe Biden was asleep at 4 o'clock. What does Joe Biden have to do with tonight? I don't know, but he did that. So you got the same old Trump today. And if you needed an introduction to Kamala Harris, you got that today. So that's a win. That is a huge win.
Last question for you, Donnell. What do you think Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss are feeling right now?
Vindication almost. Like, man, someone stood up for us directly. Somebody is representing us. Someone that looks like us, by the way, and is representing us. And there's someone out there that understands that we're not going to go back. And that treatment they had, that's going back, being treated that way. And we're not going back. I would love to sit down with them and ask them where they watched this debate, how they felt what was going on, and what they feel for it, because it felt like Kamala Harris was talking for more than just Black people or Black women. She was talking for Americans. Like, we're not doing this anymore. This name calling stuff, this lying about immigrants coming in. He talked about people eating people's pets. What is this? He did it on national TV. And it's like, God, we got it. She rolled her eyes a couple times. I think the country rolled its eyes a couple times. It was like, come on.
Well, I mean, indeed, it was quite a night. And thanks for giving us a wrap. Donnell Suggs of the Atlanta Voice. Really great talking to you. Thanks for your insight.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all for having me.
Of course, anytime. Well, there we have it. We made it to the end of, like I said, this may be the only debate that we see between, Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. We don't know yet if they will agree to another one. But Joe, what's your headline for tomorrow? What's your number one takeaway?
My number one takeaway would be that the bully got bullied, and that Harris clearly stood her ground, had the facts, came with some receipts even, and it was very impressive performance for someone that people really thought that they didn't know going in. I think they certainly have a better impression of her now. What about you?
The culture war stuff did not work. It just fell flat. We see so much in the mainstream press about, he tried to bring it with saying folks are eating, cats and dogs, with, harping on migrants, all of that sort of stuff. just hammering those issues over and over again. And I think you see, like Donnell said, that the country is, people are trying to move past that stuff because we have real issues that need real solutions instead of dwelling in this place of attacking each other. The other thing that I saw, of course, tonight is how important and critical the Black press is. You know, hearing these voices from across the country and getting this pulse on what Black folks are thinking about. I don't know if y'all can hear my dog. She agrees.
Drama
too.
wants to weigh in. Drama's got strong feelings about this
The
debate.
Black press is on it. Yes. But, you know, like just that reality of we are out here, we have, you know, we have such a huge stake in this election, in every single election we do, obviously, and just knowing how, you know, how hard our ancestors fought for the right to vote, seeing how many people are being disenfranchised from that right to vote across the country, being kicked off of voter rolls, and knowing that all of these reporters and even the young ones that we talk to that are coming up in this, you know, in this profession are covering those stories and speaking to folks and hearing those voices that are not always paid attention to, other than people wanting to find out, do we really think she's Black or not? You know, so, and we're not going down that wormhole because no,
just no.
No.
Well, that does it for us. Again, I'm Joe Williams. I'm Deputy Managing Director of Word and Black.
I'm Liz Courquet-Lesaulnier. I'm Manager Director. And of course, you can always come and visit us at wordandblack.com, read our reporting, and find out all the news about what is happening in Black America. Have a good night. Y'all be safe.
Good night.